Lemke Meijer, coming all the way from the middle of the Atlantic from Iceland, is here with us today from Gagarin. I absolutely love the work that they do, and I'm very, very excited to hear from Lemke today. So with that, I will take up no more space. Lemke, take it away.
Hi, thank you. Um, huh. Does anyone see anything? Yes, we're good. Okay, thank you very much. Um, okay, hi. Thank you for joining this talk. I'm very excited to be part of Future Spaces. I've been following many talks here and I very much enjoy it. Like I said, we're based in Iceland, which is very far away from a lot of other stuff in the world. And I'm here partner at the studio called Gagarin, where we create interactive experiences. So this talk tries to sort of take the perspective of the fact that we are so isolated in the middle of this big pond between Europe and the US. And yeah, I thought it would be a nice perspective to talk about our work. Now, the presentation is full of videos, which you see here. So I hope they'll work and bear with me. Okay, here we go. So my name is Lemke. I want to start with the fact that I'm actually not Icelandic myself. I am Dutch, born and raised. I moved to Iceland over 10 years ago. This is like a very quick drawing of my career, which like to share because I guess for a lot of people, while you're going through your career, a lot of decisions and directions don't make sense at all until later on when you look back at them and you're like, oh yeah, this makes total sense. It like lived many places. My career is going all over the place. I focused on different things. And about 10 years ago, we decided to move to Iceland, and all of a sudden everything made sense. Like I'm still very much in love with animals. I get to use scissors. I'm drawing every day. I'm making things. I get to be investigative by researching lots of things. I'm dealing with visuals every day. I can explore places. I draw. I make things for people, and I can work with anyone basically, which is keeps everything very fun. Um, so this studio that I work at is called Gagarin. We have 30 years of experience in creating these interactive experiences. And we do that for museums, exhibitions, visitor centers, but also for brand spaces. Um, we've been doing that for 30 years, but like mostly the latter half of that time has been focused on these spaces. So a little bit like how we see ourselves in the design process and in the projects that we do. So first of all, we deal with content. There's always stories happening, and we collaborate with people like scientists or experts in their field, and that's sort of the starting place for our work. This happens within a space. The space is either a museum, a visitor center, or any other place. And then we feel that we are kind of the storytellers in between. How can we turn that content into experiences within this space? So in the space, we collaborate with architects, light designers, exhibition designers, etc., and we create these interactive experiences. And the way that we do that is mostly through interaction, tangible interaction. And talking about that doesn't mean just pushing a button with your finger, but it's about using your whole body in experiencing these stories. Now, a simple example I like to give, 37 centimeters, I say, but on the other side of the pond, we talk inches, I guess, so it's 14 and a half inches. So if I ask you how big that is, or if you start thinking about a measurement like that, it's very quickly that I can't see you acting. So it's very quickly, thank you, Josh, that people start embodying that basically. So it's about this big, a bit like a shorter or shorter of the long side of an A3 that we use here. You have different sizes. So it's like kind of you embody this sort of measurement. And this is the kind of metaphor that we used in one of our installations, which is in the lava center here in Iceland, where we are basically showing a very known like a fun fact of Iceland, which is the fact that it grows 2 centimeters per year. But we basically have a measurement, which is 2 centimeters per year, and then per year, which is like a time measurement. So we have two measurements, and by um, asking people to use their hands to create a measurement, they sort of embody this piece of content, and this size becomes a time. So it's 15 years for Iceland to grow this much, et cetera, et cetera. So you can play with that and you basically embody that piece of content instead of giving that sort of equation and making people do maths, albeit simple, but still it's like a very different experience. So this is what we mean when we talk about interactive experiences and really using the interaction to make the content yours, so to speak. So, Iceland. The thing is that everybody has a different normal, I think. Everybody who has lived abroad or in another culture or in another place on the earth knows or it gets confronted with whatever you find normal and what is not at all normal in that place. So there's lots of normals here in Iceland that are abnormal to other people. We live bordering the Arctic. We have winters where it's very, very dark. Like we have a couple of hours daylight during the day, and in the summer it's very bright. I'm a mother. I work full time, which is like very not normal in the Netherlands. We have earthquakes. There's hardly any trees. We have volcanoes that are active. We have people who believe in elves. We have an occasional polar bear arriving to our shore, swims over from Greenland. And we think that 15 degrees Celsius, like 60 Fahrenheit, I guess, is like a really beautiful warm summer day. So these are things that are normal here, but maybe not in many other places. But since I'm from the Netherlands, I might be having sort of different experiences, but it means that a lot of these normals I've made my own, and some things I have maybe another perspective on. But from that point of view, I made my talk. So I will take you through some of Iceland's quirks and connect it to basically how we design. So first of all, people who know Iceland or have been Googling, like I did in the previous slide, there's lots of beautiful, beautiful nature. It's a very powerful kind of nature. There's like rivers that cut canyons through the landscape. There is aurora, the northern lights. We have these huge sands, which are black. We have volcanoes erupting on a regular basis the past years. So there's a lot of like very powerful nature around. There's no tree or hardly any trees basically, and most of the country is uninhabitable. So we're very used to having the power of nature all around us constantly all year round. So this sort of leads to a respect for nature where we're trying not to beat it really, but like when we design is rather like, what does this experience mean? How do we feel nature, right? It's not just about how it looks, but it's also how we experience it. It's part of everything. It's intertwined with who we are, very historically speaking, as well as since 900 something, people have been living on this island and we're dealing with it. So it's part of lots of stories. And I also feel within design, there's an appreciation for emptiness, which I feel like some people might call it Scandinavian design, but it's like we really like empty walls every now and then, you know, and it gives space for people to have their own contemplations and their own thinking within experiences. So we do not feel the need to fill every blank space. So one of the examples is like how, like if I ask you, how do you experience nature? It's a very natural way when you go on a hike or climb a mountain and you look around the view, you start pointing at the landscape. You see that mountain, why is there ice? Why is there water there? And this is basically a metaphor that we've used in our some of our panoramic experiences. And this is one part of the same experience as I showed before, the lava center, where you stand in a panoramic view of active volcanoes where this museum is placed. Now, there's two things. So you're invited to stand into this spot and you start pointing around, and there's interactive spots that tell you basic stats of the volcano, like when it erupted, what is the effect of it, etc. But we also tried to add a little bit of this sort of storytelling to it. When you step into this spot, there's basically a text appearing where this mountain introduces itself. And that is a very Icelandic thing, I believe, because here mountains are not, and volcanoes are not just geological beings, but they're not, and they're not an it, but they're called she. They have a character and they're beings that we live with. And they have, yeah, certain character traits. And I think that is really beautiful that we managed to get something like that into a very scientific experience, so to speak. Another project, this is a very recent project. Since we have all this powerful nature, there's a lot of green resources in the country. And you can see this is like a factory-like, very large, complex industrial installation. And this company wanted to share what they're doing here in the country and make it accessible to their visitors. Now, this complex actually is a giant vacuum cleaner for carbon, so to speak. And so they're a carbon capture facility, but it looks very industrial. So we wanted to create something that's very accessible and explains the complex systems that this complex uses, but also reflects the green nature of the company, despite its industrial appearance, basically. So in this design, we have these knobs. So we have this birch wood, birch, which is one of the few woods that can be found in Iceland. And only by using these graphics, these very minimal graphics, you know which parts of this installation are interactive, what you can touch, etc. So you turn these knobs, and by turning the knob, you're again actually pointing at this installation, and it reveals and tells more stories about each of the parts of this installation. But there's a second layer of experience to it, which is like you have this sort of blob of light that hovers over the over the installation. And if you follow, if you look closely, you can see within your light blob, you can follow the carbon and you can basically trace it throughout the whole installation. So, like I said, middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We're pretty far away. Like it's always a couple hours flight or a couple hours sailing to the next country. So yes, we are far away from many other things. And it's like our culture is very much shaped by this isolation as well. I think Iceland is often known for its creativity. I saw Josh already posting about Björk and Sigurós. And we only have 380,000 inhabitants in the whole country. And that is not too many. So we have known musicians, writers, filmmakers, artists. We have the most Nobel Prizes per capita, which is, well, it's one, but still, it's like, it feels really good to say that. And if you look at the bottom left, it's a picture of 2016 when the Euro finals of football, which you call soccer on the other side of the pond, was happening in France, and actually 10% of the population flew to France to see this one match. So that is like insane to comprehend in terms of numbers and people. There's a very rich history in storytelling. The sagas and everything we know about old Viking belief systems are kept because of manuscripts that were in Iceland. So this isolation also had its perks in a way. And there's still a very rich storytelling community. Lots of people are writers. Everybody's either writer, musician, or something creative. And it's something that is very accepted. So these are like, I find very interesting things. But if we look at that, like how that influences design, I think there's a very limited influence from I mean, obviously there's influence from elsewhere, but we are so used to figuring things out on our own that we are less concerned with how things are supposed to be. Um, because everything is so small, we're very easily connected to a lot of people. So it means that people are very accessible. You can, if we want to get a meeting with the president or something, that would not be weird. You know, we could probably set that up. Or actually, the previous president was just working as a park ranger over the summer because he felt that was cool. My colleague met him last weekend, I think. You know, so it's like a very accessible to meet people. And the one thing that I really love is that collaboration is always valued over individualism. So there is no like I'm keeping things a secret from you. It's always looking at like how can we do things together and how can we help each other. So this is an example. It dives a little bit more into design process of one of our projects. Anyone who has designed things with scientists for nature museums knows the moment when they're very enthusiastically dropping like a couple of hundred bits of content on your desk for like one installation. That happened here as well. And they asked us to, like, we wanted to make something with that. But when you, for example, put that on a wall with pictures and texts, people might read like 2 or 3 and skip the rest. And we wanted to create something that made this a bit more wholesome, a bit more storytelling, and absolutely not something that could be on a browser and you could do on the internet, right? Like it needed to be an experience. So, but there's no status quo on how to do this. So we actually got to sort of figure this out ourselves. So it's very overwhelming, all this data. So we, like in very few steps, like what we did, first of all, we organized it in because it was all about the wet area, so lakes, rivers, and wetlands in Iceland, and all the life that we can find there. So we first divided it into these 3 areas. Then we looked for a metaphor that we could deal with, and that would work very well with these environments. So we found this hardware provider that had this hardware that we could actually program, because sometimes hardware you're not allowed to, you know, go into the software and stuff. But we were able to use this, and we could combine these 2. So we had these 3 areas, and then we used this metaphor and this hardware to basically search for things. So we wanted people to really explore these areas. We're not there yet because we still have these hundreds of bits of content. So that's still not enough. Like it's not gonna solve it all. So then we came up with the idea, like, how can we organize these bits? And we felt like who eats who, like from big to small, could become like these storylines. So we have a storyline where we could combine different parts of the content. So going from a vertebrate to invertebrate, etc., etc. Okay, so we have the vertebrate, invertebrate, we have to divide that in layers. So we hypothetically made more layers. We obviously had one screen, but there could be more layers behind that hidden that could tell that story. So we had to sort of dig through the layers. Okay, we have these layers, but still every layer we still had more content than could fit in this one ring. So what we did is actually that we made the content bigger than the ring, which actually made people explore the content more and more. So you basically forced people to keep moving that ring. So you keep searching for more things to explore. And nothing works better than knowing there's something more, but you can't see it. So that's like a great motivator to actually start moving things around. And then we had to go from level to level in a way that fits the same metaphor that we picked, like this magnifying glass, and then basically having zoom levels is zooming in. So we used the ring, and by turning it around, we would shift from one layer to the next. And since we're zooming in, we made sure that we had like this focus pull effect in between that made it very visual and very intuitive. So there's lots and lots of work that went into so many details there to ensure that the final result was very minimal UI and very intuitive play with all the visuals. And this is also a funny part of how we use the to know what the orientation was. So we didn't want to flip the content automatically, and we asked a question and they answered in their language. And depending on which button on which side they picked, we knew what their orientation was and could keep the content like that. And this has become a very, very popular installation. And like people spend like 15 minutes at this installation in this museum, and they come back over and over again to explore more, which is like a very good result, if you ask me. Here you see the focus pull happening. Next project. Like I said, we very much celebrate our differences. Here is a project that was designed and started by a company called Thekio, and it's something for children in the concert hall here in Iceland. And this company, they only design for children, and they have even a design process that involves a lot of children throughout. And they asked us to join them for all the media. And this was such a fun and nice collaboration that, you know, we learn from each other, we appreciate each other's qualities, and it's been such a treat to collaborate with them. That actually led us to apply for different grants, and we actually got a development grant to create together with them another installation that is for outdoor use about music. So it's all focused on music, and this is only happening because of our collaboration and that this happened like that. And like you can see, it's focused on kids from very young to, 8 or something. And like I said, we're very far away, but we are an international company. So designed, prototype, developed in a land far, far away from where the thing actually is. We're very used, I mean, everybody now with COVID and stuff like that, but we're very used to working remotely. This is an installation we made for something in Canada. It's all about Inca weaving patterns. So they asked us to create the finale installation. And we basically have these tiles based on prints from throughout the whole exhibition. You can line them up, and by moving the shuttle, basically a weaving installation, you add your line to the fabric that's wrapped around the whole room. And this way, all the visitors together create this fabric that wraps around the room. It was a very successful installation, which is great, but I want to say none of us has ever seen this in real life. This is the only footage that we have. We've never been here, touched it on location. We made like the unit, and we collaborated with this Canadian design firm who designed the furniture, and with just clear communication, we managed to pull this off together. Another, at least for us, very known, not for all tourists who are a bit surprised, the weather in Iceland is crazy. Like literally, if there's no wind, it's very weird. There's always wind. Sometimes, like you can see in the picture, waterfalls are like blown upwards because they just don't reach the ground. And in 24 hours, it can rain, snow, sunny, etc. Like a lot of things happen weather-wise. And it's been like this historically forever. And what this does with people is that you have no choice but to adapt to whatever is going on around you. And you do not have time to overthink. You just act relatively quickly, and everybody is very determined to help each other. So within the design process, this leads to what I've noticed in Iceland. People are very adaptive. Like when projects change, outcomes and goals might change, circumstances change, and change is pretty comfortable to people here. It's like something new. Okay, we adapt, we move on. We always move with the flow, and that is very nice, especially when unexpected things happen. There is a very let's just do it mentality. Like we think it's a great idea, let's go. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Then we'll try again. There's like a lot of sort of very positive force in that sense. And again, collaborate, go at it together, and share these kind of things. This is a a project for the Natural History Museum in Oslo, where there on this floor there's these globes, and these globes explain the reasons why Earth is habitable, the magnetic field, the ocean currents, photosynthesis, all those kinds of things that happen all around the globe. The original idea was to have like LED globes or project on globes, and we started working with that. But along the way, we learned that like the building is protected. There's these beautiful windows on the side. There's Oslo, which means like low sunshine. Sometimes this is like impossible to make something and project something and it's still looking good. So we actually, when we found out, we already very quickly thought like, wouldn't AR be way better to experience these globes? And it had some sort of conversations with the exhibition designer we were working with, because obviously we were changing their original ideas, but in the end we managed to convince them to do it otherwise. So we created these binoculars that point at these globes, and we basically are able to make these globes come alive. And here again, you can see that it gives us way more opportunities. The important thing for us was that people stay anchored in space. Like this is a whole VR, AR, mixed reality discussion in museums, maybe for another time, but like being anchored in space is very important. So once you step into the binocular, you can still see the other side of the room, and then it slowly transforms to this these globes that have the magnetic field expand or is cut open, and you can see the core or etc. Yeah, the currents or photosynthesis, etc. By making it AR and like changing these globes, it allowed us to share way more information as well, which was really great. And I think we did a good job. I think some people were like even looking like, oh, why? I thought it was moving, you know, like it was moving in the binocular, but not in real life. So we made it match pretty well. And also, again, you can see there is no text and too many stuffs. Look at this line. This is X, Y, Z, and this is called this. None of that. It's only like the system, how it works, more information you can find somewhere else. So the seeing opportunities in everything, I think this is always a funny story that I feel is so Icelandic. Um, in 2010, I don't know how old you are, I still remember, but there was a volcano that erupted in 2010 in Iceland, and it basically killed all air traffic in the Northern Hemisphere. And instead, like, there was this guy who got stuck on an airport somewhere. And instead of thinking, like, oh my God, this is all terrible, in no time, he was like, this is great. Iceland is on the map. Everybody is talking about it. Everybody is trying to pronounce Eyjafjallajökull, which is this volcano that erupted. You know, everybody's thinking about Iceland. We need an exhibition about volcanoes. And that's where that started. So he had an idea while stuck on an airport. And this resulted in a lava center that I showed you two examples from before, but it actually turned into one of our most successful exhibitions, if you ask me. It's still very up to date. They're still updating their content and their experiences. And we collaborated with awesome architects who made it very visually pleasing. And a very very cool thing here was that they actually came to us first. So we had the chance to first develop the concept, and the building was designed afterwards. So around basically our exhibition idea. So it has 4 rooms, and each room zooms further into the location where you're at. So the last room is where you have the panoramic view of the active volcanoes around you, where the first room, you have the earth basically sticking out through the ground, and you can see how Iceland is made with, moving plates and stuff like that. And this is the mantle plume that pushes Iceland out. And a whole gallery where we show how the different types of volcanoes are made. Yeah, it's very fun. Someone actually who walked in this room that you see here was hovering their hand over the lava. I'm like, oh, I thought lava was hot. So this person thought there was real lava in that room. Last theme is equality. Uh, Anyone who follows the fancy lists on Instagram and social media sees that Scandinavia is very highly ranked in terms of equality. And it's true. Like, I'm not saying that we're all there yet, but the first democratically elected female president in the world was in Iceland. She was re-elected twice afterwards. There's a very high percentage of women in leadership roles. The picture here, among some of them, are the president of Iceland. We have the head of church in Iceland, head of police in Iceland, mayor of Reykjavik, a couple of ministers. They're all women in these positions. We also have like our most successful design entrepreneur of the country, who sold his company to Twitter, is someone who uses a wheelchair, which again, the fact that he uses a wheelchair has not stopped him from being this successful. And he also chose to pay all of his taxes in Iceland to, in a way, to sort of pay back to society for the fact that he managed to get through this. He's a real cool guy. Yeah, so all of these kind of things, by having this equality on the work floor, creates a lot of opportunities and adds a lot of different qualities. I'm not saying that we're all there. Like, there's a lot to do about immigrant representation or something like that, but we are definitely, like, there's so many good examples in society that I really love. So what it leads to is that, like, everybody's opinions count. Like, people have ideas. There's a lot of more sort of women in the workforce that can be CEOs and mothers and have friends and go out for drinks and do sports. You know, they do without like having to not sleep. There is like a support system in like the share that men take on, but also the facilities that society offers. I feel that design and stories that are featured in the country carry a lot more female or diverse traits than and in a different kind of storytelling, more emotional sometimes. And there's a lot of empathy in design. And I think equality culture also brings inclusion into the design process in a very early stage. Some projects that I link to this, like recently well, the World Expo is happening in Osaka in Japan right now. And Japan is a very different country from Iceland in terms of culture and how people experience things. We are there, we were responsible for the content for the Nordic Pavilion, the Nordic Circle, it was called. And since we are the Nordics, we are more than just knowing of it, right? We live being the Nordics. And togetherness is very much ingrained in the whole project. And throughout the design process, I feel there was like a lot of empathy going on in terms of, you know, the way the things that were designed, the way that we welcome people, etc. So which is not on this picture, but in the welcome area, for example, we have children's voices that welcome the people to the pavilion. So we already tried to step it down a notch from the beginning, like take away sort of a traditional hierarchy structures and like start with the children who welcome you. The graphic style of all the animations around the space is very entertaining and young and kind of funny. There's some humor in there. So not too serious and not too industrial, even though they speak about like very serious things. They're very playful in that sense. And again, to sort of lower this threshold and let people in. In terms of the design of the space, and you know, the vibe that we wanted to give, we wanted to connect to Japanese culture without like copying it. You know, we're not going to make this for you, but it's very much like we were looking for like, what are the things that are sort of similarities between our cultures? What are things in our culture that invites the Japanese culture in, and try to approach it from that way rather than flashy screens and LEDs and, you know, being very much in your face, which is not really our style. And throughout the whole production process, we made sure to constantly test our content with actual Japanese people we had a really good relationship with the embassy, and they managed to help us throughout. Like, we're like, okay, so volcanoes here are beautiful, but are they also perceived that way, or is it dangerous? Like, would that upset people? Like, constantly like trying to find a balance between, showing your country without sort of overstepping. And that was a great process. And yeah, we managed to set that up relatively quickly because the pre-work was done very well. And it's been very successful, which is very nice to see. I think this is the last project. This is a project which is very much storytelling based. Um, there is like this is the most famous waterfall in Iceland called Gullfoss. And we were asked to tell a story about this waterfall. And since it's like very much in the highlands, so it's very um yeah, extreme weather stuff like there, so we can't really get electricity and all those kind of things on location. So this is a mobile experience using QR codes. So we have QR codes placed on different parts along the trail that share this story. And the client chose not to tell a story about the power of the water and how much water it is and how dangerous and da 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 da. No, it's a story about a hero. And the hero is a woman that used to live there and her family owned the land. And it's a story about her protecting the land from it becoming an energy source. So it was a female-led design team, which I liked, and I feel like you can really feel that throughout the project and the visuals, etc. Um, so it is all about her and her strong character. And again, like talking about nature, she didn't talk about this waterfall as the waterfall, but it's her friend that she needs to protect. It's something she loves, and it's so much bigger than just a bunch of water falling down. And we collaborated with this wonderful actress. And again, very Icelandic. It's like, oh, I know someone with a horse. I can bring my dog. We need to film. There's no tourists. So this is 5 a.m. in summertime. And it's very bright outside because then the weather was good. And we filmed her in this 3D scene, and we added all these scenes. And again, we have this sort of hand lettering, and it becomes very personal story. So along the trail, there's different parts of her story that can be explored. Yeah, so that was the end of the example. So like recap a little bit, like in order to create like a wholesome experience or interactive installations, I feel like it's like sort of three pillars is like the goal of the content needs to be clear. There needs to be a very clear message. And the interaction, whatever interaction you create, it needs to match that content, that goal, or that storytelling. So no gimmicks. And the storytelling needs to happen in the right pace and with the right emphasis. Not just everything, but sometimes things are slower, sometimes things are faster. And the tools that we use, tangibility, tangible interaction, but also a lot of clarity throughout the design. We don't want people to spend brain power on understanding how something works or like reading instruction manuals and stuff like that. And I also very strongly believe that when designing for certain emotions, like if you want people to experience a certain emotion that connects to the storytelling, it creates an experience that's larger but also longer lasting. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. You can find us on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn if you want. So thank you for that.
All right, Lemke, that was fantastic. I think we can go if you want to go camera on and ask questions. I have like plenty of questions to kick it off. All right. By the way, beautiful work. I love it, and like there's actually there's a lot of there's a lot that you guys do there that resonates very strongly with me. There's one thing that you said very early on that I wanted to pick up on, which is you said that every day you get to use scissors. And like so I kind of wanted to get a little bit like like into like maybe your creative process and like how how you work and how you work with the team.
Yeah, well, obviously there's a lot of emailing and stuff going on, but when I design or ideate, I always start with sketch. I think everybody has their go-to, right? Like my colleague, he's more a philosopher. He needs to write and write poetry. I just need to, draw and use scissors. So it's like with the first ideas, or you try to convey an idea, we have lots of paper prototypes, just like quickly cut it out. Like, this is what I mean. This is say side A, B, and this perspective. You can see it like this and that. So there's like little clippings around to just convey an idea. Because very often when we come up with these interactives, we're trying to find a way that makes sense with the content. But that also often means we come up with something new. So to make sure that everybody thinks and sees the same thing as you involves a lot of scissors and paper cutting. Yeah.
All right. If anyone has questions, just go on camera. You can, I'll let you ask. But if you don't, I'll keep going. One of the other things I thought that weaving interaction, like in the Canadian Museum, it was just like so like intuitive. Like
Yeah.
it seemed I was like, of course that's what you do. But I have to imagine that was like not the only concept, right? Like did like how did you I would assume did it go through some iterations? Did you how did you arrive at that?
Yeah, there were several ideas. We had like these very big roller decks kind of thing, with rings that you would move. And then at some point, I was like, this is so, we're making it too complex. It's
Yeah.
all about weaving. Where's the loom,
Yeah.
And then it very quickly came together because we already had like the idea of having these pieces that were based on everything from the exhibition. And then it became tile. Yeah, I don't know. Then it went very quick. Once you like, I think the hook was like, I just want to do this. I want to do this. So how can we do this and make it work? And that's how then the pieces came together, and yeah, the puzzle pieces, etc.
I love
Yeah.
it. Kim Gim. I
Nice
know.
to meet you. I'm also a
Hi.
book editor. I work with Josh.
Yeah.
I kind of related to, I think specifically, I guess that project, but also one part of the work that I love about the work that you do is that everything is kind of tactile. There is a tangibility to all of it. And I'm as a creative also, that's always what I strive for, that I think we're kind of in this era of moving away from screens. How can we incorporate digital in a way that feels very human? One of the hurdles that we face many a times, especially like projects like the weaving project, which I reference all the time, is clients get very hesitant about tactile objects and maintenance and operations and all the realities of all of those things.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how you've navigated those conversations, and also how those conversations kind of unfolded for you and obviously, like, I think European culture is very different from American culture. So I think that also
I
has
think
some
so
part of
too.
it
I
too.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know too much about American culture. We get like, of course, yeah, anyway, that's a different talk. But yes. So one thing I have realized though lately, but that is just the benefit of having done this so for such a long time, that when specifically like the that clients are afraid, oh, but these people will steal something. That's the one thing everybody always says. And you're like, well, you just make an extra set. And it never happens because we have A, B, C, D, E examples of places and experiences where this never happened. But you can always have a backup, And it's like, do you really want to cut all of that out just to have, you know, because of the fear of, someone stealing something? Like the last project we had was last year, and then we had these figurines, and it was about different tracks of different Arctic animals. And then the client was as well like, well, no, we need to have a cable attached to the thing that is attached to the wall. And these are like metal, they scratch and they make a mess and it looks ugly. And yeah, and we convinced them not to do it. And we also with the promise, we can, if it's really that terrible, we can always attach them later. And that hasn't happened. So sometimes we try to push it forward a little bit, that discussion as well. But the value that interaction with objects gives, even if it's loose objects, I think outranks this fear of losing a puck or something. Or yeah.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
nice question.
and it would be the worst thing if like someone got a free souvenir that was like probably like $3 worth of material.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean,
We try to tell clients that it's actually a good thing if they take them. It means that you were kind of successful, that it was so enticing that like that happened. But thank you for answering my question.
yeah, of course.
So I'm actually very curious about, so is your team pretty much all in Reykjavik? Are they local? I mean, I mean, now everyone's so distributed. Are you guys
Yeah.
still keeping it pretty focused in
We're pretty local. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm a big fan of human interaction. But we do collaborate with people from other places all the
Yeah.
time. And obviously a lot of our clients are remote. So we are in lots of conference calls all the time anyway. But yeah, especially like during the design process, we do a lot of brainstorming, which can be done online. We've done that online with yeah, Vanessa, I don't know if she's still here, but we've been body storming at some point over Sky or over Zoom where we were embodying being a whale and like, I don't know, it was a lot of fun, but still, we also did that in the same room together and it just gives a different sort of vibe being in the same space. Ha, I see you, Vanessa. Yeah, so it's like, yes, we are mostly the core team is here, but we definitely do work with like extra hands from all over. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, when I first started my agency, I started in Philadelphia with all Philadelphia like people. And there was something like kind of nice about it. It's like having the entire band in the same neighborhood, like you can just
Yeah.
like meet and practice in a way that's a little bit harder now. But yeah, and I mean there's trade-offs, but like I kind of miss I kind of there are parts of it like it's like I miss when the band was all like together.
Hmm.
Anywho.
Yeah.
Um if someone has a question, I will allow them to jump in. I will not totally. Okay, I'm going to jump in anyway. One of the things I thought was really interesting because I think your positioning, and I mean, usually these future spaces are not so inwardly looking as Blue Cadet, but I think actually in some ways, like your agency reminds me a lot of mine. But like I like the fact that you guys use interaction instead of technology. Because like I think that's you seem to use technology and everything, but you're not using the word technology. And I wonder if that was like a word that you kind of like worked over, if that was
Yeah.
very intentional.
Yes, very intentional because it's a means, technology is a means, it's not a goal. And like in the end the storytelling is the goal, right? Like we have a visitor or an audience and it's about what kind of story to take along and it's about retention of that story and using your whole being into getting that story and becoming one with that story is so much more valuable. And that's our starting point. When you start designing hardware with the hardware, you end up the same place. The hardware should serve the storytelling. So is the storytelling with the interaction that follows, and then you search for the right hardware. Obviously, we have hardware that we like to use because we have experience with it and we know the versatility of it. But we always say we create experiences and we do not want to see any hardware. We want to hide that. Even if it's a touchscreen, we don't want it to feel like a touchscreen, so to speak. So in the volcano exhibition, for example, we have these screens where we show how volcanoes are built. So different kind of like a caldera volcano or a traditional volcano, whatever, different kind of eruption, lava, temperatures. But instead of it being a touchscreen that says play, we created this sort of strip, that an overlay strip kind of thing, where we made it tactile. So you basically place your finger and you follow the slit that is in that strip. And by doing so, you basically move the story back and forth. So we make it so that you do not have to look at your hands and look what you're doing. So we always try to have the same focal point and use interaction and tangible interaction in a way that you do not have to look at your hands, where you're touching, etc., etc. So it's true. We don't like to talk technology. Technology serves, I mean, it's highly technological, but it serves the stories that we create.
I love it. I think we probably have time for one more question. If no one else is going to ask it, I'll just keep asking. I'm being very indulgent today. I'm curious about like what are the things that you're seeing right now that are inspiring to you? And like, I mean, there's, obviously our team is talking about AI all the time, and both
Yeah.
in ways that are fearful and embracing, but like, there's all these like interesting things happening in the world. And like, what are the things that like are exciting you right now? And or
Um,
terrifying you, whichever you feel like
y-
talking.
yeah, well, like AI obviously is a big thing, and I don't know, I'm just so confused about it all the time. I don't have like a one opinion about it. But it definitely, like, we use it obviously in, especially when we're programming and stuff like that, like it makes things way more efficient. Um, but then moving on to the creative process, I'm like, it feels to me that if it's all based on things that have been before, then doesn't it create repetition? Anyway, AI, let's park that. I don't even know where to start. But something that I saw, like when I was in, like I was in Japan installing the expo. I went to see Team Labs, which is something that we've been referencing a lot. And I was so excited to go there. I was there with my dad, and he was like a little kid in a candy shop. He was like, wow, wow, it was amazing. But what I realized is that I've seen this on so many pictures and like videos that I was so excited to go, and I was all in. And I was telling others, like my colleagues who went later, I was also telling them to go. And then they came back with like, it was such an eerie experience. It was way too much. And my other friend who was also part of the expo, she went there and she's like, what is this doing to us? Like, where is nature? And then that made me think. So I was very excited about all these sort of technological possibilities of like, the ideas of like drawing your bird and then make it come alive in this space. Like it's something that we've ideated on so many times and many versions of that idea. And it's really cool to see it done so well. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, my friend was like, well, just go to a forest. Like, do we really need it? Like the how sort of technology is replacing our nature experiences in a sense, specifically because Team Labs was so much focused on um nature experiences, or this extinct animals gallery, and it felt very contrasting on having in such a highly technological space. So I find that very confusing. But I do believe that technology can help share narratives and share these stories and make an understanding. But like how, and I also understand that not everybody has the means to go into nature. So I found that, yeah, fascinating in a good and a bad way at the same time.
That's super interesting. I'll give a shout out to futurespaces.com where we have an interview with Team Lab. They were on very early on, like Takashi Kudo. And like honestly, seeing their process and actually just like talking to them and seeing the type of people that created that was very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And very revealing because I was like, it makes a little bit more sense when you see like some of the like the thinking that goes behind it. But it's like you're spot on, and we should go down the rabbit hole separately on that. I think so. Let's go. We're at time. Thank you so much. That was like super super interesting. I just love your work. Is there anything that you'd like to sort of shout out to the community? Any way that they can stay in touch or support you? Support.
Um, we love collaborations. Yeah, we're always up for, collaborating. Maybe something in the US sometimes. We've tried some projects, but in the end it never worked out. And other than that, please find us on, LinkedIn or whatever. You can find me and our company there on Insta and Facebook. We try to share updates a lot. So yeah, please stay in touch.
All right, fantastic. Lemke, thanks again. This was really fantastic. Thank you to everybody for joining today. Hope those of you who are in America have a wonderful 4th of July weekend. Those of you not, have a wonderful break from your American colleagues. Thank you so much. Hope to see you all next week. See you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.